So first of all, thanks a lot, Darren, for doing this.
Yeah, no problem.
We've been doing the whole back and forth thing between texts, emails, and phone calls and all that. So, and again, this is my first Zoom interview or meeting. So, you know, uh, be patient. So let me get started by. So this will be the five questions, kind of the round robin thing that I mentioned. So for question number one, what triggered your passion for audio engineering?
Yeah, so I guess I was always into music, but I was in a band in high school, and I must have been about 16 years old, and uh, I went over to my friend's house, and his father had some Wilson Watt 5s in the living room with the reference 300 monoblocks by Audio Research, and well, that just blew me away. I had never heard anything like that before. And I guess I was hooked from there. I started buying stereo files and, just reading as much as I could about audio. Um, Started learning the lingo, started saving my money, cutting lawns, doing anything I could to buy, whatever I could upgrade my system. And yeah, so I just started the journey that way. And by the time I got into college, I had racked up a really nice system. And by listening so much and tweaking and changing, you start developing your ear and you start to be able to really resolve differences um, and that can be really rewarding when you start to really learn how to build a system that has synergy, and find what you like is a big part of everything. And I started venturing into vinyl. I had a VPI Scout with a Benz glider, and wore that glider out, just collecting records and listening to music and enjoying it. So that was kind of how I started on this. From there, it was to pursue electrical engineering school and start to educate myself technically on audio design and components.
Nice, nice. And I think when you said to me you went to University of North Carolina, did I say that right?
Yeah,
Cool.
at Charlotte.
Charlotte, cool, cool. And I guess okay, so that was the lead into question number two. So after finishing your education, how did you get your first gig in audio engineering?
So I was going to local shows, audio shows, and there was a Music Matters event in Charlotte featuring Dave Nodder of Class A Audio. And so I met Dave.
Darren. Okay. Sorry, man.
And okay, we're unmuted. So I met him, and he just we exchanged information, and I told him all about how I'm interested in it, and I I'm going to school for EE, about to graduate, and well, he ended up hiring me, and I moved to Montreal, and just worked for Class A and learned a lot. It was my first gig. I worked on a lot of Class D stuff and helping them with voicing and listening.
Cool. Hey, Jeff, can you do me a favor? Is there a way we can mute everybody except just Darren and myself?
I made the mistake of unmuting people, and now I'm going to mute them back up. Sorry.
Okay. No, that's cool. That's cool. All right.
I think they're all muted back.
Yeah, just Darren's got to unmute himself. That's the only.
Oh,
All right.
okay.
Cool. That's cool. No, we're good. We're good.
Yep.
Okay. So, all right. No, that's cool, Darren. So here's the next one. Who were the people that mentored, influenced, and taught you the most when you started out in audio engineering, and now for that matter?
So the first person I worked under, his name was Sergio Ignat. He's actually the analog designer for Class A audio. And he's just a wealth of knowledge, very, objective, and understands, audio circuitry on a very high level, and taught me a lot about the individual topics that really matter in audio design from a technical perspective. I really think highly of his stuff. He's the guy who designed the new Delta 3 series from Class A now, which are just absolutely fantastic amplifiers. They're very good. But from there, I started learning. So one of my audio legends, I guess, is Bob Cordell and John Curl and Bascom King. Of course, Nelson Pass. I've studied all these guys' designs, and I think so highly of every one, and they've all contributed just so much. When it comes down to learning about audio circuits, I think that Bob Cordell has offered more to the audio community in analog circuit design than anybody else I can name. Some people may not be familiar with him, but he's a scholar who writes a lot of textbooks in audio engineering, and he's just absolutely fantastic.
Very good. All right. So on to question 4. So what products are you most proud of that you designed on your own or as part of a team? And I guess this would be more PS audio stuff, but I'm sure you did stuff when you were at Class A and BMW.
Yeah, sure. At Class A, I did I worked on several of the Class D amplifiers. We were making, our own proprietary Class D amplifier, and so I was involved on that team, working on those designs. Class D amplifiers have been a focus of mine in optimizing Class D modules, finding analog circuits and components that sound really good with modules, and also optimizing at Class A. It was also optimizing the output stages, and optimizing timing and layout, PCB layout, which is really critical. But every product is a completely different animal, and it's a different character. And when you first fire up a product, it's almost like, okay, I need to get to know this character. I need to know what I have on my hands. And then you start to mold that into something that starts to communicate music and starts to have coherency to it, and musicality. That can be a difficult process. So every product so far, I guess to answer the question, my answer would be, there's not a specific product that jumps out. It's just that every product I feel takes me, I just learn so much more through every product, and it's just this journey. And I just can't wait to get on to the next one to know, what am I going to think like after the next one? I don't know.
Right. I guess it's kind of like, when I put that question together, it's kind of like asking a songwriter what their favorite song they wrote is. It's kind of like they're all their babies. You can't really, say pick which one's your favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
I guess every product teaches me how much, how little I know.
Sure. Well, no, man, I got your M700, so again, it's like I've been telling people, you fire those things up and you do not know you've got a Class D amplifier on your hands, but for me anyways.
Oh, we have some questions coming in here too.
Oh yeah, yeah, okay.
So
If you want to answer those while we're doing this, that's no problem.
yeah, sure.
Go for it. Go for it.
So there's one that came in from Jeff. What was your first system? I touched on that briefly. So my first actual system that I would call a system, meaning I had declared that I had gotten to a point where I was just switching cables and I was really satisfied with it, was the speakers were Merlin VSMs with a Conrad Johnson CAV 45 integrated amplifier running EL34s. And I had a Riga Planet CD player in that system with a Audio Research PH3, which is just an amazing phonostage, with a Scout, a VPI Scout running a Benz glider on that Scout. And that system was really fun. And it got me into just collecting records instead of like thinking about what the next amp I wanted to buy. I was just going out to record stores and just buying records. Oh my God, this and that and this, learning about artists. And it just got me into the music, and it taught me what a highly resolving but yet musical system could bring me.
Great.
Let's see. The Class A has the reputation for high musicality. This is from Jeff as well. Does Bob work for a firm now, or has he?
Bob Cordell.
Bob Cordell. Bob has contracted out. Bob never worked for Class A. He produces a lot of books and data sheets. Actually, he works for a company does some data sheets called From Linear Systems. They manufacture JFETs, and he does a lot of their data sheets and tutorials on circuits. But he also has several books out for teaching circuits. So that's his main focus. But he's done some designs. I don't exactly know what designs in the industry he's been involved with, but you could almost see him as like a Douglas Self in ways. He's just a little bit more balanced between listening and objective material, where Douglas Self, of course, is a straight objectivist. Let's see. So we're shipping, and we have a lot of stock in our warehouse, and everybody who's in that building, it's extremely minimal, the amount of people in that building right now. We're all working from home, but they're wearing PPE and the whole deal, and staying over 15 feet away from each other, and they're shipping product, and it's keeping our heads above the water, and I'm extremely thankful for that. So do you research different transistors to use in amplifiers? Absolutely. Finding the right transistor for the given purpose in the circuit is absolutely critical. Various different characteristics that you need to look for in transistors. And there's different types of solid state devices. There's JFETs, there's MOSFETs, there's bipolar devices, which are generally called transistors. And then there's more advanced type of FET semiconductors, such as GaN FET, and all these have certain purposes and certain advantages, and there's no superior device. It's more so about the location that you use that device in the circuit. Now there's areas in the circuits where you can use different or multiple devices, and those devices will sound different if you replace it in the same location. So they may have similar performance in that location, but they're going to sound a lot different. And then people have kind of come across or developed some generalizations to what those devices sound like. JFETs, people say, sound warmer. That bipolars sound slightly, more solid statey. I don't know if I can back up any of that. I've done a lot of that research, or I have a lot of experience in trying those kind of things. And I have to say that's so design specific that you can't necessarily say right now that a bipolar is not as good as a FET. I just don't think that's true. It's very design specific, and how the whole thing sounds as a whole. And again, the actual general purpose or what you're using that device for can really lead you to the correct device to use in that application.
And so I remember, Darren, when you and I were talking last week, the one thing that you mentioned to me that kind of surprised me but didn't at the same time was when I was asking you about a lot of these output transistors now, they're actually, the stock is dying out and nobody's making dies for them anymore. Like we know from Nelson Pass that he's hoarding a bunch of output transistor stuff, N-type, P-type, for complementary setups. Well, and then when I asked you, I said, so what do you do when it's depleted and nobody's making the dies in North America anymore? And a lot of the companies in Japan and China, they just gave up on that end of the business. And then when you said to me, tubes, I mean, 25 years ago, it was hard to get decent tubes. Like everything was coming. If you could get it from Russia, that was it. But now you're telling me tubes, like they're basically not recreating, but they're bringing back all the old tube types and all that. Supposedly, what you were mentioning to me, maybe say a little bit more on that.
Yeah, there's the tubes are fairly available as far as the large or the more popular tube types such as 6922 and 12AU7s. Those are readily available and being produced currently, and probably the standard, or the typical high-end tube that's being produced in current production is better than 20 years ago. Yeah. And probably not as good as 60 years ago, but still it's we can buy good quality tubes today. And we probably have to thank the guitar industry for that, or the pro audio industry. Yeah. But to kind of touch on that point of some of the devices going out, it's true that you're only going to get some semiconductors for so long, and then they're going to stop making that semiconductor, and boom, now you don't have stock of it, and people don't want to build new amplifiers with parts that you can't get anymore. The executives in the companies are going to be very, very mad about that. But I think that some people certainly look for those devices that are going to go out, what's called EOL, and then build up a huge stock, and then it goes out, and then now you're the only business in town with those parts. And it's possible. I don't want to say necessarily that this is always the case, but it's also possible that there's a little bit of marketing involved with that, where they say that this part is so good and no other part could ever replace it, and we're the only ones that have it. You kind of see the marketing position that you put yourself into. So I don't want to, I'm not calling names, I'm not saying that.
Oh no, trust me, here in the club we kind of know in general. I know we can't say who they are, but we know who they are. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't want to say it's across the board. I'm just saying that that's plausible. It's plausible that that's the case. Just because I've done some, when I'm, like, for instance, the JFETs, for instance, that's the big one, is Toshiba JFETs. Well, Linear Systems is making JFETs now that are the same models as the Toshiba. And they're very close. And there's not really a reason, like a Toshiba is not going to blow away a Linear Systems device when it comes to sound. It's just going to it's going to measure a little bit better. I mean, we're talking, you know, tenths of a nanovolt. So, you know, it's really when they say it's not as good, it's like, yeah, it's not exactly the same part, but generally it's going to get you where you want to go. So there are options for a lot of the stuff that's gone EOL. As far as output devices, like what Nelson is doing, that is true. He's messing around with those VFETs that you can't really get anymore, and they have interesting characteristics. So, all right.
Go ahead and take another question, because somehow I've lost my entire video here. I can hear everybody. My computer decided to, this is the first time this has happened.
I haven't cut you off. You're still listening.
No. It's on my end, guys. Actually, Darren, just go ahead and take another question from the guys in the club, and then again, I can still hear everybody.
Cool. So next question is from Paul. What are your thoughts on GAN as the future of Class D? My thoughts are that the future of GAN is bright, and you know, I look forward to higher frequency designs being made where we're pushing the bar up into higher switching frequencies for the amplifiers themselves. GANs, of course, have the advantages. They have a few advantages. They have a very low gate capacitance. They have very low RDS on. So they're efficient, and they can switch very fast and stay efficient. And they can switch very fast, and they cannot produce a lot of distortion, because the more gate capacitance you have, the slower it takes, or I should say, the longer it takes for you to drive that gate up. So that means that to have any sort of good timing on the output stage, you must slow the device down until those parasitics of the gate signal is going to result in an acceptable deadband or cross conduction of the output stage. So as your devices get better, you're able to switch faster because you have less parasitics on the gate. So GANs are great, and I look forward to the future with GANs.
Okay. I'm going to go on to question number 5, and then we'll continue with then we'll let you do the storytelling part, because I got a few technical issues on my side, but that's okay. So long as everybody can see you, they can hear me, we're good. So, all right, so my question number 5 is, as an example of the fine audio engineering being done by yourself and other younger audio engineers, be it amps, preamps, DAC output stages, Class D input stages, the list grows. Where do you see your designs taking you in the next 5 years? And as when I sent these out to you last week, I knew this is kind of a bit of a weird kind of interview question, but I figured, okay, you know, I'll let you answer it the best way possible.
I want to chase the, you know, musicality, but still trying to improve the design itself. And I guess let me distinguish what those two things are.
Yep, take your time.
Something that it communicates music in a very coherent and musical fashion, something that makes you want to listen to music. It doesn't have issues that, you know, point itself out. So, you know, that's something that's really important to me. It's great when you have something that is more revealing and something that shows the source more. That's great. That's awesome. But at the same time, you know, it has to communicate music and draw you in. And so my focus from a listening perspective is to pursue that in my designs. Now, on the other side of things, I want to make designs that measure better. So I want to make it more engaging and more musical, but also improve measurements. I want to learn more about how to balance those two sides of things. And it's always been a focus of mine to pay attention to both. Uh, but if you're going to go the route of something that measures state of the art, you better know the nuances of what it takes to make it musically engaging, because it's very easy to just suck the life out of it.
Yeah.
And so that balance, that line is a fine line, and I just want to be able to walk the line finer, and learn more about a certain style that is along those lines, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me personally, and again, because I've got your amplifiers and that, for me, from what I'm seeing, Class D is the future, because like we were talking before, where a lot of parts are being depleted and they're not coming back. So, but people like yourself, and I know there's other companies out there that are basically taking a building block like a Class D module and say, okay, this is what it sounds like out of the box. And by doing all the stuff you do with the input stages and things like that, making them sound more musical, right? And again, like I said, with my stuff, I used to have like AdCom amps and things like that, and these sound better to my ears anyways. And a lot of people I know for a fact, let me mute my other mic. Video. All right. Yeah, I've got two laptops going here, guys, so don't just bear with me. So, yeah, that's my feeling, anyways. I know there's a lot of people that poo-poo the Class D stuff, and you know, I'm always defending it, because a lot of people, they just see, oh, it's Class D, it's going to sound harsh, it's going to sound brittle, and all this, but a lot's been done in the last 10 years from what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, from people, and especially people like yourself, where you know, I've seen all the old YouTube videos where Paul was kind of like, you guys want to do Class D? Like, really? And then, you know, you did it, man.
Yeah, you know, it does boil down to the actual implementation of it too, you know. So it's hard to say, oh, well, I don't like set amplifiers, or I don't like Class A/B amplifiers, or I like Ds, or I do like sets. I mean, it's hard to do that, because I don't know, everything sounds different. You know, it's maybe you have a topology that you prefer, and that's fine. And everybody's gonna have that topology, but from design to design within the same topology, it varies so much that it's hard to generalize.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, so I've kind of done my 5 questions.
Okay.
Bear with me. Dave Hortland's on tonight?
Yep, he's here.
Cool. Dave, how's your Stellar Phono preamp?
Let me make sure
Well,
you're
I have to
muted.
say it's a wonderful piece. I've been very happy with it. Darren, you were the primary designer on that. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
And, you know, Joe asked what piece you were most proud of, and I think you've got a lot to be proud of with that piece.
Thank you.
Coming in at $2,500, it definitely challenges a lot, you know, certainly anything under 10 grand and probably more. I've been very happy with it. I did have that little problem smoking a bit, but and you know, I think I called in on a Monday, and you sent me a return slip on it, and I packed it up and shipped it off, and I had it back the following Friday, and that is just amazing.
Yeah, I'm glad you're up and running again.
Your turnaround was just wonderful. And I've used it now in two systems, my Minnesota and my Sun City system here in Arizona, and just very impressed. I'd refer everyone, of course, to the Michael Fremer review in the January Stereophile. But that mid-range is just so solid and so present, and the high end and low end are all there too, and it's just very musical, very complete. I suppose its primary competition would be the JC3 Plus from Parasound.
Yep.
And I've had one of those in my Minnesota system too, and it was very nice, but I wasn't tempted by it. It has a very balanced sound to it, but it just didn't have that. It was a little drier, if I may say, in its presentation than you have managed to do with yours. So I'm a happy camper. I anticipate keeping it for several years and would recommend it to anyone who's looking for a phono preamp. Again, under under 10 or 12 or 15,000. I mean, Michael Fremer called it a must audition, and you know, I can't say anything stronger than that.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate that. I'm glad that you're enjoying it.
Very much so. I'm basically a vinyl guy. About 75-80% of my listening, but
nice.
So it's, much appreciated.
That's awesome.
That's a good segue into the M1200s.
Okay. Yeah. So we just released. So I just released a new amplifier in the Stellar range called M1200. So it's based off of the new Ice Edge technology. Outputs 600 watts into 8 ohms and 1200 watts into 4 ohms. Has a tube input stage that's based on a 12AU7 and is in a little bit taller chassis than the M700s, but it's still the same footprint in that chassis. So Joe, do you have any questions regarding that?
Well, I mean, I guess this goes back to what we were talking about before, where your first amp that you did for them was JFET-based input stage. I think I got that right.
It's MOSFET.
MOSFET, sorry.
To the S300.
Sorry. And now you guys are doing the tube input stage. And basically what I saw on all the beta testing, everybody seems to love it. Like it's another example where you took an idea and basically said, okay, we're going to do this now. And the whole idea is to kind of, it's a lot of stigmas, right? Like everybody says that's got to be all tubes or, you know, a lot of hybrid stuff. But you guys said, no, we're going to keep with the Class D, design a tube input stage that sounds musical, and then, you know, tweak it by ear. And based on the reviews, stuff looks sounds like you got it.
Yeah, that's you know, that's what we did. And you know, every amplifier again is a different journey in designing it. And all I'll say is that the module that I was dealing with in that case is it's just so much better than any other Class D module I've ever heard. And so right off the bat, I noticed that the input stage was even more sensitive to whatever sound it had. So the input stage is really, really critical. And you may say that, oh, you just don't want that input stage to sound at all. But I don't really understand that. So if anybody can help me understand what something that doesn't sounds like.
Fair enough.
Because then I just hear the thing after that. There's, you know, everything has to be seen as a complete system and as a whole, because otherwise you just assume that everything else in the system is perfect, and that's not reality.
Yeah. And again, the other thing, the way you guys did the production of that with all this Corona stuff going on, and you know, 3 shifts, 7 days a week, and having people coming in different stages, it's like, you like Jeff had mentioned about all the doom and gloom in the audio industry, and it's nice that PS Audio was able to stay away from it, but I'm sure it wasn't easy.
It wasn't. It was an interesting challenge, to getting those betas out, and it's shaking up everything in our life right now. So this was, relatively not a very big issue. We have big problems right now. So I'm just glad again that we're doing well and that our head is above the water. So.
Yeah.
So the next part I was going to get to before we get to more questions from the guys.
Mhm.
Can you give us some any kind of industry stories that you've had in the last few years? I know I mentioned to you about the Arnie Nudell story from Paul's book there from a few years ago. That was I don't know if you wanted to share that one again or something else that's a little more, on the happier side.
Well, there were happy times with Arnie. I'd gotten to know Arnie after I started working for PS Audio, and I started driving up to his house in Eagle, Colorado, and we spent a lot of time together. And he taught me more about listening. And one of the massive things that he taught me about listening was trust my instincts and trust my ears. And I'll never forget that, because there was a point where I kind of got in my head and I said, oh, like you're making this up or you're making that up, and it's easy to second guess yourself. But that gut instinct that you have when you listen to a component is likely follow through on that, because it's very likely that that's what it gives. And large changes, yeah, it's easy to discern large changes, but when you're talking about the small stuff, when you're talking about change this resistor or move the speakers, toe in the speakers a little bit, it's important to go off your instincts and to have confidence with it. And I think Arnie really drove that home with me and taught me about that a lot. And he loved music, and we listened to music all the time on his system, and he had an amazing sounding system. But he was he was kind of a big personality, if the sound wasn't good, he was in a horrible mood, and you wouldn't want to deal with him. And then he'd be like, let's go out. We're going to go out and drink wine. And so we'd go out, and I learned about all these stories about the infinity days of him driving all these Ferraris, and he had a Ferrari collection. And he, one time he was driving Bascom King in his Ferrari in San Francisco, and he floored the Ferrari going downhill, and they went off and got air in the street. And Bascom is this, really timid, he just wants everything to be fine and relaxing and all that. And he's just holding on, like, oh my God. So you learn all these stories of these guys. And I really miss Arnie, because he had a lot of color and a lot of drive, and he loved music, man. Like it was his life. And so I unfortunately found Arnie in his garage one day that I was going up there, and he had slipped the night before, and it was like 28 degrees in that garage. And Arnie was 81 and had complications, and he was not in good condition when I found him. So I had to call 911. We got him over to the hospital, and he died. He died about a week and a half after that. So it was kind of a traumatic experience, but I'm glad I found him, and I was able to get him to a more comfortable situation.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions?
Going once, going twice. So, hey guys, all right. So if we're gonna wrap this up, I mean, Darren, dude, thanks a lot, man. I mean, you and I've been in contact for the last 3 weeks, but I mean, again, and this is my first time doing this, so you're kind of like my guinea pig tonight for TED in 2 weeks. But yeah, I mean, this went really well, and you know, again, thanks a lot for doing this with us.
Yeah, I almost want to join for the TED one.
Oh no,
I
no,
don't
no.
know if
Well,
you
here,
guys are- like,
I'll
TED
send you an
Ted's
invite
awesome.
for.
Love to.
Yeah.
I mean, Ted's amazing.
Yeah,
He's
well,
amazing.
and he set me straight 2 weeks ago. You know, a 1-hour phone call with him, and you know, he saw my poor man's way of extracting I2S out of my Sony player and stuff like that, and he's like, "Yeah, it's a cheap way of doing it, but it works." You know, yeah. So no, he's
Darren, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. I respect what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
It was really wonderful.
Great.
here.
Glad you guys enjoyed
Yeah.
it.
I second and third whatever everybody else is saying. I loved it. Thank you so much.
No
Really,
problem.
really a pleasure to have met you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
All right,
Well,
guys. Go ahead.
I might see you guys on the TED one. I would love to just
Yeah.
join and hear him talk. Honestly, I love TED.